Today, I'm going to tell you the story of that airport robbery in which a gang of thieves looted $5 million, 0 cents, in cash and bags full of gold and precious items from the cargo building of JFK Airport, all in just 30 minutes. The value of that loot, in today's time, would be around 27 million rupees, 0 paise, which means nearly 220 rupees, 0 paise. Historically, nearly 220 million rupees, 0 paise. And the most shocking part was that the thieves knew very well how to get inside the building and exactly where the loot was kept. The investigation into this heist went on for almost 2 years, and the mastermind behind the robbery started killing off each member of his own gang one by one. So, what was the reason that every single member of this gang was murdered? And why did it take 2 whole years to catch the final person involved in the robbery? After hearing this, your hair will stand on end. Because what happened after this legendary heist? The way each gang member was killed was horrifying and terrifying. The story begins in 1978, when at JFK Airport, in the cargo building of Lufthansa Airlines, all the workers were busy with their duties, moving cargoes from one place to another. But when an officer in a high-dollar tail complimented FD on the workers' membership score, under attention put many members of this gang in jail. After hearing this, your hair will be pale, and both of you will picture this scene. At the same time, 6 thieves suddenly stormed into the cargo building and within minutes looted millions of dollars, then fled without leaving a single clue behind. During the entire robbery, the thieves clearly had detailed knowledge of the building, and when the police arrived for investigation, they began to suspect that perhaps an airport officer was involved in the crime. Their suspicion became stronger when they discovered that just the night before the robbery, $5 million, 0 cents, had been shipped to the cargo building from Frankfurt. This cash was supposed to be sent to a bank in Manhattan, New York, and since it involved bank transactions, the case was immediately handed over to the FBI. Right from the beginning, the FBI was working on a single theory. They believed that the man behind this story was Jimmy, aka James Burke. James Burke was associated with New York's Lucchese crime family, and he was considered the most dangerous member of this family, because for him, killing someone was just routine. James was not only dangerous, but also extremely clever, which is why he was the planner behind every major operation of the Lucchese crime family. You can imagine his brutality from the fact that the bodies of the people he killed were either never found, or if found, several parts were missing. Although James Burke was not physically present at the time of the robbery, the entire planning was done by him, and it was under his instructions that $5 million, 0 cents in cash, and $1 million, 0 cents worth of valuables, were looted from JFK Airport. This robbery became so famous that it started being referred to as the Lufthansa heist. This wasn't James Burke's first robbery. Back in 1972, he had already been jailed twice for theft and was once sentenced to 6 years for beating a man named Gaspar Chiago half to death just because the man had lost money to his boss Casey Rosado in a gambling game and refused to pay back. After serving 6 years in prison, as soon as he got out, James began planning this entire heist. The plan was made inside a lounge called Robert's Lounge, which was also run by James Burke himself. Most of the criminals from the underworld used to hang out in that lounge, holding parties and planning their next moves. One reason why they used this lounge was because it was very close to JFK Airport, and many people from the airport would frequent the place. This entire plan began after one tip-off, which was that a Lufthansa Airlines plane was landing at JFK Airport's cargo terminal with $5 million, 0 cents in cash, all of which was to be sent to a bank in Manhattan, New York. This tip reached James Burke's man, Henry Hill, through a man named Martin Krugman, and Martin had gotten the info from Louis Werner. So, The man who had been deep in the Loeffler displays had gotten the info from Louis Werner. Louis Werner was the airport worker who worked in the Lufthansa Airlines cargo building and had previously stolen $2.00 from the same place. But since there was never any solid proof against him, he was never fired. Anyway, once James Burke received this tip from his man Henry Hill, he immediately got to work on planning the robbery. Using his connections with the Lucchese crime family, he began arranging weapons and people to execute the job. Although the cash only stayed in the cargo building for a short time, once the pickup van left, whatever cash arrived after that would stay there until the next day. This cash was brought for currency exchange, and that's why it mostly consisted of small bills, making the consignment bulkier. And the word spread fast. Now Burke sends two of his gang members, Robert "Frenchy" McMahon and Joe Buddha Manry, to meet Louis Werner, the man working inside the Lufthansa cargo building. The idea was to extract every detail about the cargo building from him. Louis gives them every tiny piece of information, like how many guards are on duty, how many shipments come in, what time they come, and most importantly, when the building's security is the weakest. After getting all this information, Burke starts building his gang, choosing only those who had a specific skill that could help pull off the robbery. The first two people to join were Henry Hill and Thomas D. Simone, Burke's right-hand and left-hand men. Others included Angelo Seppi, Louis Cafora, Joe Buddha Manry, Paolo Lee Castri, and Robert "Frenchy" McMahon. Burke even added his son Frank to the team. Frank's job was to wait outside the building with the getaway van, so once the robbery was done, they could make a quick escape. The last member to be added to the gang was Parnell Stacks Edwards, who was tasked with disposing of the getaway van after the job was done. Each member of the gang was being paid between $20,000, 0 cents, to $50,000, 0 cents, for helping with the heist. 20% of the stolen amount was promised to Louis Werner, since he provided all the insider details about the building and the shipment, had shared all the inside information, and now James Burke was completely ready, along with his full gang, to carry out the heist. The plan began on the night of 11th December at 3:00 AEE, when 6 men got into a black van and headed towards the airport. They were all dressed in black, wearing gloves, and their faces were fully covered with masks. After reaching there, they used bolt cutters to break the locks and entered the building. Because they already knew the building inside out, they quickly disabled all the alarms and positioned 2 members outside with the van to alert them in case of any danger. The cargo workers in that building usually got a meal break at 3:00 a.m., during which they ate or relaxed. And this was exactly what the thieves were counting on, expecting everyone to be inside the lunchroom at that time. Once inside, the first person the thieves encountered was John Murray. They quickly took him hostage, and he led them straight to the lunchroom. Inside the lunchroom, the thieves found 5 more people, whom they blindfolded and gagged, then forced them to lie face down on the floor at gunpoint. At this moment, Murray, out of fear, told the thieves that 2 employees were still unaccounted for. One was Rudy Erich, the night shift cargo manager, and the other was Kerry Whalen, the cargo transfer agent. Moments later, Rudy arrived, saying he had gone to the washroom, but Kerry Whalen was still missing. Soon, when Kerry reached the parking area, the 2 thieves positioned outside grabbed him and locked him inside the van. Meanwhile, a worker downstairs heard some unusual noise and came upstairs, only to find himself staring down the barrel of a gun. He too was taken hostage and made to lie down with the others. Because it was the night shift, there was only one security guard on duty. As soon as the thieves found out, they captured him too and locked him in the van. Now, from the guards to the workers, everyone in the building was under the control of the thieves. Then, among the captives, the thieves pulled out Rudy Eirich and made him open the double-door vault. They began filling 72 cartons with all the cash and valuable items stored inside the vault. These cartons were then loaded into the van parked below. At the same time, Burke's son Frank arrived at the scene with another van. The gang hopped in and escaped. while the van full of cash was driven away by another thief. They had already decided to regroup at an auto garage behind Burke's lounge, where Burke was waiting for them. Once there, they transferred the loot from one van to another, and Parnell Edwards left to dispose of the original van used in the robbery. Within just 1 hour, America's biggest airport robbery had been executed, and it was a complete success. But what happened after that would turn this success into a nightmare. As one by one, the thieves involved started dying. Because this heist involved $5 million, 0 cents of bank cash, law enforcement agencies began putting pressure on the FBI to solve the case. As I mentioned before, the FBI was already convinced that James Burke and his gang were behind the robbery, but they had no concrete evidence. That's why they were desperately hoping to get fingerprints from either Burke, Tommy DeSimone, or Henry Hill. Till now, the FBI had not recovered a single trace of the stolen items, so they intensified their investigation, which made James Burke increasingly paranoid. Since Burke had already served 6 years in prison, he decided that if anyone betrayed him or tried to testify, he would have them killed. This paranoia triggered a wave of murders that went on for years, and every member of the gang started disappearing, one after another. The first mistake came from Parnell Edwards, who had been assigned to dispose of the van. But in a hurry, he abandoned the van near his girlfriend's house, and because of that, the FBI recovered it. This was the first major slip that would soon cause serious trouble for the entire robbery plan. As soon as the FBI found the van, they sent it for forensic testing, and the results revealed fingerprints of people who had been seen with James Burke in the past. It didn't take long for the FBI to realize that James Burke was behind the heist, and within just 3 days, Burke's house, cars, and phones were all under surveillance. While listening to recorded calls, the FBI got its first breakthrough. They overheard 2 gang members talking about the robbery. They were discussing how much loot they got and where it was hidden. This surveillance report reached James Burke, and he also came to know that the van had been recovered, and the FBI had solid leads now. In Burke's eyes, there was only one person to blame for this: Parnell Edwards, who had failed to dispose of the van properly. Burke had Edwards murdered by Tommy DeSimone, and just a week after the heist, Edwards' body was found on his bed, with 6 bullets to the head. Not even a month later, Martin Krugman was also killed, the same Martin who had informed Henry Hill about the incoming cash in the cargo building. The reason behind Krugman's murder was that one day, in a panic, he started demanding his share of the loot from Burke. Burke grew suspicious, thinking Krugman had cut a deal with the FBI and was trying to take his share and run away. Based on this suspicion, Burke had Krugman killed, and his body was never found. After this second murder, the third member to die was Tommy DeSimone, but it's believed that his death wasn't linked to the Lufthansa heist. Instead, it was said that the Gambino crime family of New York had him killed, as Tommy had made enemies with them. A few days later, Richard Eaton, who used to manage Burke's lounge, was found hanging inside a freezer truck. He, too, had been killed by Burke because he, along with 2 partners, had tried to steal $500,000, 0 cents worth of loot from the heist. Those 2 partners, Montel and Teresa Ferreira, were also found dead 2 weeks later. One of them, Ferreira, had his severed head found near a river. Louis Cafora, another one of the robbers, was also murdered by Burke, and the reason was he used to discuss all the gang secrets with his wife, Jonna Cafora. At the same time, he bought an expensive Cadillac car from his share of the heist and took it to a meeting held near JFK Airport. After that meeting, Louis Cafora and his wife Jonna Cafora both disappeared, and their bodies were never found. By now, 5 members of the gang had been killed. This killing spree paused for a few months, but then Joe Buda and Robert McMahon's dead bodies were found in a car. Both had been shot in the back of the head, and the reason behind this was that the FBI had found solid evidence of their involvement in the robbery. So, before the FBI could reach them, Burke had them both killed. Even after such a big heist and so many murders, the FBI still didn't have any direct evidence to arrest James Burke, So they decided to try a new tactic. 2 months had passed since the start of the investigation, and the FBI sent a court notice to New York's Lucchese crime family, hoping to link the robbery and the murders and finally arrest James Burke. The FBI also called in the workers who were present at the cargo building that night to help identify the robbers. In that, Kerry Whalen identified Angelo Seppi, saying that Angelo had attacked him in the parking lot and locked him inside the van. Another worker from the cargo building, Jude Eyrich, told the court that the robbers had full knowledge of the building's safety system and the double-door vault, and they knew every corner of the building. He also told the FBI that the robbers even knew that opening both doors of the vault would trigger an alarm, so they only got one door opened by Eyrich and left the second one closed. Because Angelo Seppi was part of the Lucchese crime family, as soon as he was identified in court, the FBI arrested him immediately. Angelo became the first thief arrested in connection with the heist. As soon as James Burke heard about Angelo's arrest, he went into hiding. Around this time, the FBI got their hands on a man named Peter Grunwald, who was an associate of Louis Werner, the same Louis Werner who worked at JFK Airport and had shared all the details of the heist with Krugman. Since both Peter and Louis were just low-level airport workers and their salaries were modest, it was suspicious when they both suddenly started spending a lot of money. Peter Grunwald paid off all his debts, while Louis Werner bought a customized van with cash. This mistake became a big problem for both of them. The FBI started suspecting that they might be involved in the heist. Based on this suspicion, the FBI took both of them into custody and started questioning them. Peter Grunwald couldn't hold out for long and finally told the FBI everything, solving the entire case. He told them that 2 years ago, he and Louis Werner had committed a small robbery in which they stole $2,000, 0 cents, and both had ended up in jail. Peter also told the FBI that Werner had promised him that if he pulled off a big heist, he would give him $65,000, 0 cents, and if Peter lost his job because of it, he'd be given an extra $500, 0 cents. As promised, Werner gave him $500, 0 cents after the big heist. Now, the FBI's suspicion started to turn into certainty. These two were involved. But when they asked Peter about James Burke, he claimed that he didn't know anything about him. Louis Werner also refused to reveal anything about James Burke or his gang. Still, the FBI charged him with leaking airport information to robbers and helping in the robbery. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison and fined $25,000, 0 cents. Werner was sentenced in June, and for the next 8 months, the FBI didn't find any new information related to the case. Then something happened that completely changed the course of the investigation. By now, Werner had spent 8 months in jail, and he was facing a lot of difficulties. So he decided to cooperate with the FBI in order to reduce his sentence. He told the FBI that he had given the heist tip to Krugman and Joe, and after that, he didn't know who they passed it to. But since Krugman and Joe Buddha were already dead, the information was no longer useful to the FBI, and it didn't help reduce Werner's sentence. Meanwhile, after so many of the gang members had been murdered, Henry Hill became afraid that James Burke might kill him and his family too. So, Henry decided to make a deal with the FBI, becoming their witness in exchange for protection. The FBI included him in the witness protection program, and Henry started giving every single detail about James Burke, how he planned the heist, his connections with the Lucchese crime family, and how he ordered the murders of his own gang members. After Henry's testimony, in 1980, the FBI finally arrested James Burke. 2 years after the robbery, the mastermind of the entire operation was finally in FBI custody. But because it took a long time to gather solid evidence against Burke, the trial went on for 2 years. Eventually, James Burke was sentenced to 15 years for the robberies and life imprisonment for the murders. 14 years after his sentencing, on 13 April 1996, James Burke died of cancer, leaving the world behind. Because James Burke never confessed to any of his crimes, the FBI was always haunted by one question: where did all the stolen money and valuables from the Lufthansa Airlines cargo building go? It is believed that the money was divided among many people, including the mafia, and that's why the stolen goods were never traced. Angelo Sepe, who had been released on bail, was found dead 10 months later in the basement of his Brooklyn apartment. The reason behind his death was that, a week earlier, he had robbed a drug dealer, and in retaliation, the dealer sent 2 shooters to kill Angelo Sepe and his girlfriend. Finally, we come to the last and youngest member of the gang, Frank Burke, the son of James Burke, who had driven the van during the heist. His dead body was found on 18 May 1987 at 2:30 a.m. near Liberty Avenue in Brooklyn. Just 2 days after Frank's death, the police arrested a 46-year-old drug dealer for his murder. That dealer told the police that before dying, Frank had started working for the Gambino crime family, and due to a personal rivalry, the dealer killed him. Henry, who had revealed everything about the heist and the murders, also died 10 years later from an illness. And just like that, every member of the gang slowly left this world. Louis Werner kept appealing to the FBI to reduce his sentence in exchange for his cooperation. Eventually, his sentence was reduced to 5 years, and he and his wife Janet Barbary were given new identities and relocated outside of New York. How did you find this story? Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. See you in the next video.